From Cave to Power, the untold story of Xi Jinping. Imagine a boy born into privilege, the son of a revolutionary hero who suddenly lost everything when politics turned against his family. At 15, instead of classrooms and comfort, he was sent to a remote village where his home was not a house, but a cave carved into the hillside. He carried buckets of water from the well, shoveled manure in the fields, and read books by flickering candlelight, while others doubted he would ever rise again. Yet in those silent nights of hardship, he built a resilience that no one could see, a determination that no one could measure. Rejected again and again from the very party he dreamed to serve, he refused to give up, applying year after year until persistence opened the doors that privilege had once closed. Step by step, province by province, he climbed from obscurity to power, from the forgotten countryside to the center of Beijing, until the boy in the cave became the man who would lead a nation of 1.4 billion people. His name is Xi Jinping, and his story is not just about politics, but about endurance, ambition, and the belief that even the deepest setbacks can prepare a person for the heights of history. Roots in Revolution. Xi Jinping was born on June 15, 1953 in Beijing, into a family deeply connected with the founding of modern China. His father, Xi Jinping, was a veteran revolutionary who fought alongside Mao Zedong in the Communist Revolution and later served in high-ranking government positions. For young Xi, this meant being born into what was known in China as a red family, a family with deep revolutionary credentials. But privilege in revolutionary China was never guaranteed to last. Xi's father fell out of favor during political struggles in the 1960s. When Mao Zedong launched the Cultural Revolution in 1966, the lives of millions were upended, and Xi's family was not spared. His father was purged and imprisoned, while his mother was publicly humiliated. For Xi himself, the consequences were harsh. As a teenager, he was sent down to the countryside as part of Mao's campaign to re-educate urban youth by making them live and work alongside peasants. At the age of 15, Xi was sent to Liangjiahe, a poor village in Shanxi province. There he lived in a simple cave dwelling carved into a hillside, sleeping on a hard brick bed and working long hours on farms. Xi emphasized the need for supply-side structural reforms, shifting the economy away from heavy reliance on exports and infrastructure toward innovation, consumption, and technology. Xi described BRI as a way to promote global development and cooperation. Critics, however, argued it also expanded China's geopolitical influence and created debt dependency in participating countries. One of Xi's earliest and most defining moves was to launch a massive anti-corruption campaign. Corruption had long been seen as one of the biggest threats to the Communist Party's legitimacy. Lavish banquets, bribes, and embezzlement scandals involving officials were widespread, and public anger was growing. Xi declared war on both tigers and flies, meaning high-ranking officials and low-level bureaucrats alike. No one was too powerful to escape scrutiny. Life in Liangjiahe was physically grueling. He hauled buckets of water from wells, carried manure, and endured hunger during winters when food was scarce. Villagers initially distrusted him, viewing him as an outsider from a privileged background. Yet Xi adapted. Over time, he built relationships with villagers, studied Marxist texts, and slowly began to cultivate an image of resilience. Years later, Xi himself described that period as transformative, saying that the hardships of Liangjiahe taught him perseverance and shaped his worldview. English tip. As you listen to sentences like these, notice the phrase, shaped his worldview. This is a common way in English to describe experiences that deeply influence someone's thinking. Practice using it with your own life stories. The young Xi Jinping applied multiple times to join the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, but was rejected repeatedly because of his father's political disgrace. It was only after years of persistence and building a reputation in the countryside that his application was finally accepted in 1974. For Xi, those years symbolized more than survival. They were his initiation into politics from the bottom up. Unlike many privileged children of senior leaders who were able to avoid the worst of the Cultural Revolution, Xi carried the image of someone who had endured suffering. This story of endurance would later become central to his carefully curated political identity. Return to Beijing and the path of study. By the mid-1970s, China was beginning to recover from the chaos of the Cultural Revolution. After Mao's death in 1976, Xi's father was politically rehabilitated, and this opened doors for Xi's own future. In 1975, Xi was admitted to Tsinghua University in Beijing, one of China's most prestigious institutions. He studied chemical engineering, but more importantly, Tsinghua exposed him to a network of ambitious students, intellectuals, and future political leaders. Later, as his career advanced, Xi also pursued part-time postgraduate studies in Marxist theory and political ideology, which would bolster his image as a leader steeped in party doctrine. While at Tsinghua, Xi was seen as disciplined, serious, and cautious. Unlike some of his contemporaries who experimented with Western ideas during China's opening, Xi projected loyalty to the party. His early years suggest a man who learned the dangers of standing out in turbulent times. Instead, he cultivated patience, building connections quietly. After graduation, Xi joined the People's Liberation Army, PLA, as a secretary, serving in a logistical role for top generals. This period gave him exposure to the military establishment, an institution that has always been central to power in China. Though his role was administrative, it forged relationships with influential figures that would benefit him decades later. Climbing the ladder in the provinces. Xi's rise within China's political system followed a path typical of many future leaders. He spent years working in local provinces, slowly building credibility. Unlike Western political systems, where fame or wealth might fast-track a career, in China, the Communist Party demanded loyalty proven through service in rural or regional positions. In the 1980s, Xi began his provincial career in Hebei, working in modest county-level roles. By the mid-1980s, he was transferred to Fujian province on China's southeastern coast, where he would spend nearly 2 decades. Fujian was a crucial posting. It faced Taiwan across the strait, making it a sensitive region politically and militarily. It was also a testing ground for China's economic reforms. During his years there, Xi developed a reputation for pragmatism, emphasizing economic development, infrastructure, and anti-corruption efforts. He built close ties with business leaders while maintaining a reputation for personal modesty. In the early 2000s, Xi's career accelerated. He was transferred to Zhejiang province, one of China's richest and most entrepreneurial regions. As party secretary there, Xi promoted private businesses, foreign investment, and economic modernization. He gained a reputation for supporting market-friendly reforms while remaining ideologically loyal to the Communist Party. Then in 2007, Xi briefly served as party chief in Shanghai, China's financial hub, after the city's leadership was shaken by corruption scandals. His short time in Shanghai further enhanced his credentials as a reliable, steady leader who could manage crises without drawing unwanted attention. English tip: notice the phrase, gained a reputation for. This is a powerful English structure to describe how others view someone's qualities. Try using it. She gained a reputation for honesty. He gained a reputation for hard work. Xi's steady provincial climb paid off. In 2007, he was appointed to the Politburo Standing Committee, the highest decision-making body in China, consisting of just a handful of top leaders. This move placed him directly in line to succeed the then-president Hu Jintao. By 2008, Xi was chosen as vice president of China. In this role, he represented China on the international stage, visiting countries and attending major events like the 2008 Beijing Olympics. Observers noted his calm demeanor, cautious speeches, and ability to avoid controversy. Unlike some of his peers, Xi projected reliability and discipline, traits that align with the party's desire for stability. Behind the scenes, his revolutionary family background, being a princeling, his provincial experience, and his reputation for loyalty made him the consensus candidate for future leadership. In 2012, at the 18th Party Congress, Xi Jinping was appointed General Secretary of the Communist Party of China, the most powerful position in the country. In 2013, he became president of the People's Republic of China, formally assuming the mantle of leadership. Part 5. The rise to supreme power. But those predictions were wrong. Within a few short years, Xi Jinping reshaped the political landscape of China more dramatically than any leader since Mao Zedong. From the beginning, Xi made it clear that his priorities were not only economic growth, but also strengthening the Communist Party's authority, fighting corruption, and pursuing what he described as the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. His vision was summarized in what became known as the Chinese Dream, a national revival that would restore China's historical greatness, improve living standards for citizens, and secure the country's place as a leading global power. English tip: pay attention to the phrase, "made it clear that." It's often used in formal English to describe someone stating priorities or intentions directly. Example: she made it clear that honesty was her priority. Try using it in your own sentences. The anti-corruption storm. For the public, the campaign sent a powerful message. The leadership was serious about cleaning up corruption. For Xi, it also had another effect. It allowed him to remove rivals, consolidate power, and secure loyalty across the party. When Xi Jinping took office as General Secretary of the Communist Party of China in 2012, many observers expected him to be a cautious, transitional leader. At the time, China's leadership was often described as collective, with power distributed among a small group of senior officials rather than concentrated in one individual. Some analysts predicted Xi would simply manage the status quo. By the mid-2010s, Xi had succeeded in establishing himself not just as China's top leader, but as the undisputed center of power. Economic vision and the Belt and Road Initiative. But perhaps his most ambitious economic policy was the launch of the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, in 2013. Inspired by the ancient Silk Road, BRI aimed to build infrastructure and trade networks linking China to Asia, Africa, Europe, and beyond. Highways, railroads, ports, and digital networks were constructed under this vast project. Regardless of perspective, BRI became one of the largest international investment projects in history, symbolizing Xi's ambition to make China not just a participant in globalization, but a shaper of global systems. Centralization of power. Xi Jinping's leadership style marked a departure from the collective leadership model that characterized his predecessors. He emphasized the supremacy of the Communist Party, insisting that it must oversee all aspects of Chinese life, from the economy and culture to education and the military. Under Xi, the party's influence grew stronger in private companies, universities, and even online platforms. In 2017, the Communist Party enshrined Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era into its constitution, elevating his ideology to the same status as Mao Zedong's. This was more than symbolism. It signaled that Xi was not just a leader, but a defining figure in the party's history. Then in 2018, a dramatic move stunned the world. China abolished the two-term limit for the presidency, effectively allowing Xi to remain in power indefinitely. Supporters argued continuity was essential for stability and long-term goals. Critics saw it as a step toward authoritarianism. English tip: notice the phrase "marked a departure from." This is a useful way in English to describe a significant change from past practice. Example: her decision marked a departure from tradition. Domestic policy and social transformation. Xi's era also brought sweeping domestic policies. Poverty alleviation. Xi pledged to eliminate extreme poverty in China by 2020. Through targeted programs, relocation of poor households, and infrastructure investment, the government claimed success in lifting nearly 100 million people out of poverty. Environmental policy. Xi declared a vision of building an ecological civilization. China became the world's leader in renewable energy investment, though it remained heavily dependent on coal. Technology drive. Under initiatives like Made in China 2025, Xi emphasized self-reliance in semiconductors, AI, and green tech, aiming to reduce dependence on foreign powers. Despite his achievements, Xi Jinping remains a highly controversial figure, both inside and outside China. Controversies and criticism. As China grew more powerful, Xi Jinping positioned the country as a global leader. In climate change negotiations, China pledged to achieve carbon neutrality by 2060. In global trade, Xi defended multilateralism at forums like the World Economic Forum, presenting China as a supporter of globalization, even as tensions with the U.S. escalated. In geopolitics, Xi took a firmer stance on issues like the South China Sea, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, emphasizing national sovereignty and unity. These moves boosted his image domestically as a leader protecting China's interests. Internationally, they sparked both admiration and concern about China's growing assertiveness. Part 11. The Pandemic and the Politics of Control. The year 2020 tested Xi Jinping's leadership in unprecedented ways. The outbreak of COVID-19 began in Wuhan, China, in late 2019, quickly escalating into a global pandemic. In the early weeks, local officials were accused of downplaying the virus, which allowed it to spread. Doctors who tried to raise the alarm were silenced, including the now famous case of Dr. Li Wenliang, whose death later sparked public outcry. Yet as the crisis deepened, China imposed some of the strictest lockdowns in the world. Entire cities were sealed, millions were tested, and travel was tightly restricted. These measures slowed the spread of the virus domestically, while much of the world struggled. Xi framed the response as proof of the strength of China's governance model. He emphasized that only a centralized, disciplined system could mobilize resources on such a massive scale. State media portrayed him as the commander-in-chief of a people's war against the virus. In late 2022, the policy was abruptly lifted, leading to a surge in cases. For Xi, the pandemic became both a showcase of state capacity and a reminder of the political risks of tight control. English tip. Notice the phrase, in unprecedented ways. It's often used in English to describe situations that have never happened before. Try it. The storm affected the city in unprecedented ways. Rivalry with the United States. Another defining feature of Xi Jinping's leadership has been the growing rivalry between China and the United States. In the early years, Xi emphasized cooperation, speaking of a new type of great power relationship, but tensions deepened over trade, technology, and geopolitics. Trade war. Under U.S. President Donald Trump, tariffs were imposed on Chinese goods, leading to a tit-for-tat trade war. Xi's government responded with its own tariffs, while also pushing for greater self-sufficiency in technology and manufacturing. Technology rivalry. The U.S. imposed restrictions on Chinese companies like Huawei, citing security concerns. In response, Xi doubled down on innovation, urging China to develop its own semiconductors, 5G networks, and artificial intelligence. Geopolitical flashpoints. The South China Sea, Hong Kong, and especially Taiwan became areas of rising tension. Xi repeatedly declared that the reunification of China must be fulfilled, sending a clear message about his determination on Taiwan. Leadership style and personality. Building a fully developed, strong, modern socialist nation by the centenary of the People's Republic of China in 2049. How history might judge him. It is too early to say how history will remember Xi Jinping, but some possibilities are clear. Lessons for the audience. Consolidation of power. Critics argue that removing term limits and elevating his ideology has brought China closer to one-man rule. Supporters counter that stability and continuity are essential for long-term national goals. Human rights concerns. International organizations and governments have criticized China's policies in regions like Xinjiang, citing reports of mass detentions and surveillance. The Chinese government rejects these claims, framing them as anti-China narratives. Hong Kong. Xi's leadership oversaw the passage of a national security law in Hong Kong, curtailing protests and reshaping the territory's political landscape. To Beijing, it restored order. To critics, it ended Hong Kong's promised autonomy. Internet and censorship. Under Xi, internet censorship has tightened, with stricter controls over social media, news, and academic freedom. Supporters argue this protects stability. Critics see it as limiting individual rights. These controversies highlight the dual image of Xi Jinping. For some, he is the leader who restored China's pride and global stature. For others, he is a symbol of authoritarian consolidation. English tip: learn the structure for some, for others, to show contrasting views. Example: for some, change is exciting. For others, it is frightening. Vision for the future. Building a moderately prosperous society by the centenary of the Communist Party in 2021. His speeches emphasize that China's rise is not just for its own people, but also to reshape global governance. In his words, China is offering a new option for countries seeking development without adopting Western political models. He may be remembered as the leader who restored China's confidence, fought corruption, and lifted millions out of poverty. Or he may be remembered as the leader who centralized too much power, suppressed freedoms, and heightened international tensions. Perhaps like many historical figures, he will be remembered as both, a man of vision and control, achievement and controversy. What is undeniable is that Xi has already secured his place as one of the most consequential figures in modern Chinese history. Few leaders have transformed their nation's trajectory so rapidly or with such determination. Xi Jinping's life story, from a boy living in a cave during the Cultural Revolution to the paramount leader of the world's most populous country, illustrates the power of resilience, persistence, and discipline. English tip: by listening to stories like this in English, you're training your ear for complex vocabulary and advanced sentence structures. Over time, this helps you speak more confidently and naturally, just as Xi's persistence helped him rise through obstacles. Whether one agrees with his politics or not, his journey shows how hardship can shape leaders and how vision, combined with power, can redefine a nation's destiny. The cave dweller who shaped a nation. Xi Jinping's life is a story of contrast, privilege and hardship, loyalty and control, revival and controversy. He began as the son of a revolutionary, endured humiliation during the Cultural Revolution, lived in a cave as a teenager, and climbed step by step through China's provinces. Today, he stands at the center of the world stage, shaping the future not just of China, but of global politics. Whichever way history records him, one truth is already clear: Xi Jinping has transformed China's course in ways the world cannot ignore. The U.S.-China rivalry came to symbolize more than just bilateral disputes. It represented a clash of worldviews, the U.S. promoting liberal democracy, and China under Xi advocating a model of authoritarian stability and state-led development. But the same policies also drew criticism. China's zero-COVID approach, maintained for nearly 3 years, meant rolling lockdowns, economic slowdowns, and growing frustration among citizens. By 2022, rare public protests broke out in cities like Shanghai, with citizens demanding greater freedom. Global leadership and challenges. Xi's leadership coincided with a critical phase in China's development. The country had already risen to become the world's second-largest economy, but it faced slowing growth, rising debt, and widening inequality. Under this campaign, more than 1.5 million officials were investigated and punished. Among them were senior leaders once thought untouchable, including members of the Politburo Standing Committee. Supporters praised the campaign as essential for restoring trust in governance. Critics argued it was also a political tool to eliminate dissent. Both views may be true. Socially, Xi's government also emphasized tight ideological control. Media and internet platforms were placed under stricter supervision. Education was reshaped to highlight loyalty to the party. For many citizens, this meant stability and improved livelihoods. For others, it meant reduced freedoms and tighter restrictions on expression. Xi Jinping's leadership style has been described as disciplined, cautious, and deeply pragmatic. Unlike some past leaders who projected charisma or flamboyance, Xi's strength lies in projecting authority and control. He speaks in deliberate, measured tones, often repeating key ideological phrases. He emphasizes the supremacy of the party, warning against Western liberal ideas, and stressing the importance of unity and loyalty. Xi's personal image has been carefully crafted. State media often shows him eating simple meals with soldiers, walking through rural villages, or speaking directly to ordinary citizens. These images build the perception of a leader connected to the people, even as he presides over one of the most centralized governments in modern Chinese history. At the same time, Xi is known for his relentless work ethic. Officials describe him as someone who demands loyalty, discipline, and results. His years in Liangjiahe as a youth are often invoked in official narratives, reinforcing the idea that hardship shaped his resilience. Xi Jinping often speaks about the two centenary goals. These long-term visions frame his policies. Whether it's technological self-reliance, military modernization, or social stability, Xi positions his leadership as guiding China through a new era. For supporters, he is the architect of the Chinese dream, the man ensuring China's rightful place in history. For critics, he is a symbol of authoritarian rule in the 21st century.